Jay. So, Ekadashi, by the word, the meaning, it means 11th day. So, this is the 11th day after either full moon or the new moon. So, which means once there is Amavasya or once there is Purnima, after that, the 11th day is called Ekadashi. So, that is the lunar calendar that we follow. So, that is called Ekadashi. So, that is when we fast. So, how many Ekadashis would we have in a month? Anyone would like to answer?
Two Ekadashis.
Jai Ho, nice, two Ekadashis. So let's do furthermore calculation. So how many Ekadashis would we have in an year?
24.
Jai, but yes, 24 Ekadashis.
I think it's
Yes.
26 also, no?
Yes. So 24 Ekadashis technically, but if you see, there are actually 26 Ekadashis. 26 Ekadashis. So there are these 26 Ekadashis. These two Ekadashis come during the leap year. So also sometimes
yes.
called as the Adhik Mas. So this is where we have this Ekadashi. Oh, I guess my screen. Okay. So we have total 26 Ekadashis. So these two extra Ekadashis, they come during the leap year or Adhik Mas. So now this is the technicality what we can understand from Ekadashi. Okay, 11 day, 26 Ekadashis. But who is this Ekadashi that we are talking about? So this is a pastime that is about in some Satyuga, in some Kalpa or some Yuga of Brahma. So there was a demon called Mura demon. So his name goes he was known as Mura, and he was very powerful. That all the Devi Devtas, including Indra, were afraid of him. They were scared of him. And as we all see, the ultimate shelter is Lord Vishnu. So here they approach Lord Brahma, and then with Brahma they went and they connected. They prayed to Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu said, "Fine, perfect. So let's do one thing. Let us go and let us fight with this demon." So Vishnu, heading all the Devi Devtas, he attacked Mura demon and other demons present over there, his associates. While Devtas were while the fight was equally, the opponents both were equally opponent, and we know Vishnu is very powerful. But for the sake of pastime, the fight went on for 1,000 celestial years. So 1,000 years not of human beings, but that of Devi Devtas. So that would be more than 1,000 for on the earth. So after 1,000 years of fight, Lord Vishnu, he was little fatigued, so he was tired. Uh, Technically, again, we know he cannot be tired, but this was just a pastime for a higher purpose. He had some other plans in his mind. So showing himself to be fatigued, he went to Badrika Ashram. And when he went to Badrika Ashram, there was a cave over there named as Himavati. So in Himavati, the Lord went over there and started resting over there. So now Mura followed the Lord Vishnu, and then he entered Himavati, this cave named Himavati. And then seeing Lord over there, he said, "This is the best time to kill this undefeatable Lord, so that he has always been a trouble for us demons. So it is good time. Let me not waste it. Shubha Muhurta." So he took out his sword, and he was about to uh, kill or slay Lord Vishnu. At that very moment, from Lord Vishnu's body, there manifested a beautiful girl, beautiful young girl, who had very, very bright complexion. So when Mura saw that she was saw her, she saw that he saw that she was equipped with uh, various brilliant weapons, and she was ready to fight. Now seeing that, the demon understood that she would be attacking me. So he started attacking her. But that goddess, the girl, young girl who had come out from Lord Vishnu's body, she shattered all of Mura's weapon by her weapon. And in a moment, he was deprived even of his chariot. So he was following Lord Vishnu on his chariot. So even his chariot was destroyed. So now seeing himself without any weapon, no chariot, so he thought, let me have hand-to-hand tussle with her. And he ran towards her to attack her with his bare hands, kusti. But when she saw him coming, she angrily cut off his head and he lay dead over there at one shot, one instant. So when this happened, Lord Vishnu woke up and seeing demon Mura lying dead over there, and goddess who emerged from his body present over there, he asked her, "Who are you?" So now it is not that Lord Vishnu did not know anything, and it is not possible that Lord Vishnu is not powerful, but his energies are very powerful than him. Then Lord Vishnu cannot be supreme person of Godhead. So these are all the pastimes. So Lord Vishnu started asking her, "Who are you?" And then she said, I am your Ekadashi. So Ekadashi here also means a different meaning, which is one of the many dasis. Dasis means servant. So I'm one of your many servant. Ekadashi, I'm your one servant. And then that, since she appeared on even 11th day, which also happens to be Ekadashi, which is the 11th day after full moon, new moon, he said, let your name be Ekadashi. And he gave her boon that whoever on this particular day worships you or follows fasts on this particular day, they would be there, all their sins would be eradicated and they would be allowed to enter Vaikuntha, which is the eternal abode of Lord Vishnu, Narayana. So this was one of the pastimes of Ekadashi. So going ahead, in the coming slides, we will see there is one more pastime that is connected with Ekadashi. So different yugas, different kalpas, there are different pastimes that do happen. So it is not that Ekadashi got, that was the first time that Ekadashi was done. So before that also people used to fast on Ekadashi. But that was just a pastime of Lord. Just to give a nimitta, or just say there are different things, like in Samudra Manthan, goddess Lakshmi came. So goddess Lakshmi is an eternal consort of Lord Vishnu. But that is just a nimitta, just a reason, a cause to basically do the pastimes. So we will see one more pastime of Ekadashi going ahead. So we have seen what is Ekadashi technically and who is Ekadashi. Now let us understand why Ekadashi. So let us talk about four main reasons why Ekadashi. So let us start with some Shastrik. So this is from Padma Puran. So Jimini Rishi, he inquired his spiritual master, who was none other than Vyasdev, about Ekadashi. What is Ekadashi? Kindly let me know. What are its benefits? How should we do it? And other thing. So while doing that, Vyasdev, he mentioned that Lord Vishnu once created a personified scene, who was none other than Papa Purusha. So Papa Purusha personified, scene personified, in the sense his every limb, his every part of body, it signified some sin. Like for example, his head signified the sin of murdering a Brahmana, Brahmatya, which is very top, which is very, very. I mean, it is considered to be one of the very top sins where the sin cannot be easily eradicated unless we get devotee's mercy. Then his eyes were basically resembled a scene of drinking intoxication. Then his mouth, for example, resembled the scene of stealing gold. Ears resembled illicit connection with spiritual master's wife. Nose resembled killing of one nose wife. Arms resembled killing cow, and so on. So his whole body was each part resembled each and every sin. Why did Lord Vishnu create him? Lord Vishnu created him to basically punish those people who were doing some sins. but now he needs to control them. So that is where he then created Yamraja, and who control this Papa Purusha. So Papa Purusha worked under Ramraja, and his work to basically fry the people or cut the people, do whatever hellish punishments we know of, was the task given to Papa Purusha. So now one day, Lord Vishnu happened to visit Yamraja. He's one of his very very near devotees, and while they were talking, speaking something, Lord Vishnu started hearing cries and moans of people. He asked Yamraja, what are these sounds? Who are these people who are crying? They are so pitiful. I am unable to bear the pain by just hearing their voice. Yamraja said, "Oh Lord, oh Supreme Lord, you know everything. But since you asked, let me answer that these are the people who have committed sins, and they are being tortured by none other than Papa Purusha, who has been created by you." So Lord Vishnu heard that, but still he could not understand the pain. He felt so painful because he was the well-wisher of each and every living being. So it is said in Padma Purana, Eta chancha viprase chintya karunamaya. He was chintit. Then what happened after that? When he was chintit, after seeing that, out of his karuna, his mercy, Bahuba sahasa tatra swayam ekadashi titihi. Then Ekadashi emerged from her body. This is one more pastime of Ekadashi. Ekadashi emerged from her body. And then Ekadashi said that he asked, "Who are you, O goddess?" And she said, "I am your compassion personified." And again, happening to be the 11th day, this pastime was planned to happen on 11th day. That was the complete idea of Lord Vishnu. So when this happened, so she said that I'm your compassion personified. So I want to relieve these people from the sins. So then Lord Vishnu gave her a boon that whoever on this 11th day worships me, they do spiritual activities, their sins would be eradicated. But then Papa Purusha was a little worried. Oh, man, if everything is, if this would happen, then no one would come down. I would be out of job, and we all are worried about recession, right? If we are out of job, then company does not take time to give us a pink slip. So was Papa Purusha very worried? Mujhe bhi pink slip mil jaye, everyone, I would be thrown out of the company. So he approached the Lord and said, "Oh merciful Lord, please help me." So he prayed to Lord and then said, "I want some place. You showed your mercy on Ekadashi. You showed your mercy on Yamraja. But what about me?" So Lord smilingly said, "Do not worry. On this particular day, you can reside in the grains and beans. You can reside in grains and beans. And that is why during Ekadashi, we are restricted. It is trained. We should restrain from having grains and beans. So this is the reason why grains are not consumed during during Ekadashi. So this is the Shastric pastime that is mentioned in Padma Purana, Sri Padma Purana. But unfortunately, if we go and say this to others who are new into this movement or who are interested or who just want to listen to this, they would not believe it. This pastime requires some amount of trust and belief in the Shastras. Then what are the other reasons that we should do Ekadashi? Ayurveda. So we all know that when we restrict our diet, when we have controlled diet, when we fast, then we are basically throwing out toxics from our body. So we detoxify our body. That is one of the reasons from Ayurveda. Not only that, and these reasons I have taken from few of those research papers, not from any of the Shastras, so that they have been tested and proved. You lose your weight, we all know that. Belly fat, that is being reduced. it lowers your type 2 diabetic risk when you do this intermittent fasting. Then even oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is basically it exaggerates your aging. So that is also being reduced. Your heart disease is reduced. These are all proved. So some of them may not be actually tested and proved in humans, but they have been tested and proved in rats and other animals. And they are being tested. Few of them are being tested in humans currently as we speak. But most of them are actually being tested and practiced and experienced by people. It is also heart diseases that has been reduced. We reduce heart disease by intermittent fasting. Cancer is being prevented, and this is one of the studies which I'm aware of is being in progress. So these were tested for rats, and it worked perfectly fine. And also, the scientists claim that it also improves various activities inside our body, which we also call as the metabolic activities, and which are linked for your brain health, which means you become more intelligent, and also increasing your lifespan. Increasing lifespan, that is a interesting research. We'll talk about it in a while. So these are the different reasons from the Ayurveda perspective or the health perspective why we should follow Ekadashi. Now let's talk about.
Prabhu, sorry if I'm disturbing you, Prabhu. I just wanted to interrupt you. There was one katha which was about the rice become the insect and something the worm. I'm really not collecting that.
I have never heard of it, Mataji. I'm not quite sure. If you find something, can you share in the group or something?
Yes. Okay, I will find, then I will share.
Okay, Mataji. I am aware of this Papa Purusha, which is from the Shastra Padma Puran, where Papa Purusha resides in grains. I'm not sure of grain becoming insects. Okay, Jay. Thank you, Mataji. That would be interesting to know, Mataji. So then moving ahead, let's talk about astronomical thing. We have heard about high tides and low tides. And in our school days, we have listened and understood that high tides are caused because of the gravitational pull of the moon. Now we are talking about a big, huge water body, ocean. Moon's gravitational pull is able to create some kind of havoc or disturbance or changes in this vast ocean body. Our body and Earth is what we know is 70% water, 30% land. Our body, interestingly, is also around 70 to 75% water, and rest of the thing is made of earth or whatever, the muscle tissues and all. So if Ekadashi the pull of the moon, the gravitational force of the moon can create havoc or disturbance in water, it is very logical that it also creates disturbance in our body. And scientists who have researched this, they have said that it is between 10th day and 12th day after the new moon or the full moon that the gravitational force of the moon is very strong, and that happens to be Ekadashi. So on the between 10th and 12th is basically Ekadashi. We are talking about 11 day Ekadashi. So on Ekadashi, the gravitational pull is very strong, and people who have researched, the scientists who have researched it, they have claimed the fact that they have said this is so. During this particular day, our body is affected in the sense most of the diseases which we already have kind of get exaggerated on this particular day, or we are more vulnerable to get new diseases, get infected with new diseases. So this is what modern scientists say. So that is one reason, astronomical reason, why we should follow Ekadashi. Now we'll go little technical about increasing lifespan. And this is about DNA. So we have all heard about DNA, DNA, genes, chromosomes in our bodies. Those were during the school days. So we'll not go into much technicality, but at a high level, DNA is like a blueprint. Before we make the house, build a house, how do we have a blueprint on paper of what the house should look like? So DNA is like a blueprint of our body, different bodily structures, and carries all the information for the growth and maintenance of our human system. That is DNA. and different strands of DNA. And when this long strand, it becomes chromosome. So that is all technicality. So now out of DNA, this one specific strand which we would be talking about is called telomere, or also known as junk DNA. Why junk DNA? Because as we told, DNA is known to contain some information. So if you have heard about scientists, what they do is they try to play around with the DNA, and then they try to make changes in the physical form of the animals and all. So they're basically playing with DNA. Those is though dangerous, but they are doing it in a artificially trying to do it. So similarly, different DNAs all have all the information, different strands of DNA. But this particular strand, which is available at both the ends of the DNA, does not have any information. That is why the name was, they are also referred to as junk DNA, because they thought, oh, this does not have any information. This seems to be a junk strand, some useless strand. And researchers had been studying researching on it. Later, they figured out that they are kind of protecting the information. So it is, you can visualize like a shoelace. The end at the shoelaces, you have some kind of cap, right? So the thread does not spill out and spit out, and it doesn't become troublesome for us. Similarly, in this DNA, this junk DNA or telomere, telomere, you can Google it. It kinds of guards this information. Now, we also have heard that DNA splits. So there is a process called as mitosis. All biological terms, something called mitosis. In mitosis, cells split into two and more. So when they split, what happens is all the information is also duplicated. So the DNA, the other informations, they are all duplicated, including the junk DNA. So what is the significance of this? So it duplicates, it is all good. So how is it related with Ekadashi? Now this was all the background. Now the real story starts here. Each time this duplication happens. So imagine one DNA, it becomes 2 DNA. 2 DNA becomes 4 DNA. So when this happens, the information is duplicated, and also the junk DNA is duplicated. But each time the duplication happens, a small piece of telomere or junk DNA is lost. While researchers were working on it, they had to figure out how significant this is. It is in 2009 somewhere, more information about it was revealed, and that is where the scientists who were researching on it, they received a Nobel Prize. So what they figured out is this junk DNA or telomere, they decide our lifespan. How? When they split, a small piece of the small piece of the junk DNA is lost, and when the junk DNA becomes smaller, reduce, our aging increases. We quickly age and we die. So this junk DNA, basically the length of the junk DNA basically decides how fast we how fast we die or how long we live. I'm not talking about accidents or anything. I'm talking about natural death. So the way you see few people, they basically grow old or they show symptoms. I won't say grow, they show symptoms of old age and they die at an earlier age. Now then scientists said, oh, so DNA splits and the junk DNA also is lost, and it splits, junk DNA lost, splits, junk DNA lost. It's gone and junk DNA size decreases, and it increases the risk of death. Which means we have two options to live longer. Somehow the scientists have been always fantasized with living longer or eternal. They have brought different or theorized different techniques. But here they said there are two ways we can do this: reduce it or slow this particular process. One, we reduce the splitting of the DNA, and two, even if it is splitting, because it's a natural process, you cannot stop it. And two, whenever it splits, only we need to minimize the loss of junk DNA. So cell split, junk DNA lost. Cell split, junk DNA lost. So scientists said splitting should be reduced and the loss of junk DNA should be reduced. Logically, two ways of closing it or reducing this exaggerated old age or death. So then that is where, after many research, they figured out that when we fast, this splitting is related to intake of calories. So which means if we reduce our intake of calories, which means if we fast, this splitting and loss is reduced. They did further research. They figured out that people with different lifestyle of high proteins, which means in simple language, people who eat meat. So with high proteins, people who have their high proteins in a daily food intake, they should fast 1 month in a year from sunrise to sunset. Does this ring any bell? If you see many religious practices, Easter, Ramadan, Shravan, they do the same thing. They ask for fasting even from non-vegetarian food technically, and from sunrise to sunset. This basically reduces these two things, minimizing splitting and minimizing loss of junk DNA. But what they also figured out is who have a balanced diet, who do not have high intake of proteins, in other words, who live a sattvic lifestyle. In simple words, no intoxication, nothing. Sattvic lifestyle. They can refrain from food once in 15 days for 36 hours. So once in 15 days is what? Our Ekadashi. And 36 hours is what? Ekadashi is 24 hours. And few hours on the Dwadashi, sunset, after the sunset of Dwadashi, and few hours before the sunrise of Dwadashi, or during the sunrise of Dwadashi, few hours during that time. So 36 hours, sunset of Dwadashi to approximately sunrise of Dashami to Dwadashi. My mistake. Dashami which is 10th day to Dwadashi which is 12th day, and that is what we follow. So usually we follow on the 11th day, which is the minimal we should do. But many people after sunset of Dashami, they start fasting, and on Dwadashi after sunset, which is the allowed time, they break their fast. So this scientist received a Nobel Prize for it, and it has been already there in our Shastras, and we have been practicing it for years and yugas. So these are the 4 primary reasons, both spiritual and material, why Ekadashi. There are many other reasons as well. Like there is a reason, it is said that it is believed that on this particular day, the Vaikuntha gates are open. So we know that in our body there are some millions of 1.5 or 3.5, some million nadis. They are like the nerves, you can say, which also along with the blood vessels, they are also, the energy also flows through it. So there are 3 out of this 1.5 lakh. There are 3 nadis. I'm going a little technical, but just a quick idea into it. The 3 nadis also known as Sushumna and Ida and Pingal. So these are the 3 prime nadis which are around the spine, out of which Sushumna nadi is on the spine. And if you have heard about chakras, 7 chakras, you have heard about it earlier, the chakras are on the line of the spine. So on this particular day, 11th day, Ekadashi, this Sushumna nadi, it kind of opens up and the energy starts flowing. So it is basically, in other words, it is able to absorb more energy. But what do we do to absorb more energy? The people who follow this Dhyan Yoga and all, what they do, they basically say that we should detoxify your body. And how do you do it? This helps you to keep your channel open. And how do you do this? By fasting. So this is how, these are different reasons. So now when we say why not grains? So there is one more nice connection to astronomical discussion which we had. We heard about the moon creating high tide, low tides, and also affecting our body. Now already we have 70% of the water in our body. These grains are known to retain water for a longer time. So rice or other grain items or beans, they retain water. They retain water inside them. And what happens when you have this water? They are not easily flushed out. But if you see fruits, the waters are not retained the way the fruit is. If you have experienced it when you eat more fruits on Ekadashi and you feel like urinate. So water is flushed out. But when you eat grains, it is not the case. Immediately you do not feel like urinating because the water is still retained by the grains. Which means what? You already have 70 to 70% more percentage. Maybe now it is 80%, whatever it may be. So it is affecting, it is creating it is impacting your body. And that is also one reason why grains should be avoided. One non-spiritual or shastric reason, scientific reason why grains should be avoided. So any doubt till now? Any questions before we move ahead? Jay. So now we understood why, we saw what and who. Now let us talk about how to follow Ekadashi. So can anyone read this, please? Monika Mataji, would you like to read this, please?
Prabhuji. Yes.
Yes, Mataji.
How to follow Ekadashi? What are the foods prohibited on Ekadashi? Food grains, cereals and beans, pulses, mustard seed must be avoided on Ekadashi. You cannot take even Vishnu Prasadam containing the above forbidden foods, but such prasadam may be kept to be honored the following day.
Thank you, Mataji. So we say all food grains are prohibited, beans, cereals, mustard seeds and all. So much that you cannot even honor the prasadam, Vishnu prasadam, Krishna prasadam on that particular day. You may offer it to Krishna. There is no, because Krishna does not follow Ekadashi. It is for us, Jivas. So you offer it to Krishna or Vishnu Tattva, whatever cereals, whatever it is, you preserve it for the next day and you eat it. If anyone gives you prasadam, Vishnu prasadam, you preserve it for the next day and you do it when you break the fast on Dwadashi. So this is how you should follow. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Then how do we break it? So we heard about what foods are forbidden. Now, how do we break the fast? So Kamal Prabhu, can you please read these lines, breaking fast?
Breaking fast. Ekadashi fast must be broken next day after sunrise. If you have not observed a Nirjal fast, it should be broken by grains. One should break the fast after the sunrise of Dwadashi, after the first quarter of Dwadashi Tithi has passed, but before the Dwadashi Tithi has ended, Dwadashi Parana.
Thank you, Prabhu. So we break the fast on the next day, where we call Dwadashi Paran. So here, during this particular time, so today I believe it was from something around 5:30 to 10:30 or something. So that is the time when we should break the fast to get optimum results of this fasting. So there are different ways when you fast. One is you directly do Nirjala without any even consuming water. Other, if you're not able to do so, you should try to you can drink water, only water, that is only on waters. Third level of doing it is you eat fruits and water and milk, and still you are not able to do that, then you can have something non-grain items, which can be your sabudana. Samo is something, it is in a debate. I have, giving the benefit of doubt, I have stopped eating it since I heard about a debate whether it should be consumed or not. But previously samo was being allowed. Then we have different other items. So there are few things that can be eaten on Ekadashi along with fruits and vegetables. So again, the masala which we put in the vegetables, that should be homemade masala. and should ensure that the grains were not mixed with it. We usually, what we do is we keep such masalas separately, and we use it only during the Ekadashi time, so that at times by mistake we have been making something, some rice or something, and a grain of rice or a grain of some food grain, something, a piece of it even falls into it, then it would spoil the fasting. So when, depending on what type of level, what type of fasting you are doing, next day you can, like, for if you're nirjal, you can drink water and break your fast. If you are on non-grain items, then you can eat grain items and you can break your fast, but preferably during the parana time. That is how to do. So one of my friends, he had once asked me, when he understood that I was doing Ekadashi, he said, man, this is little complicated, too many rules and regulations. How do I do it? I do not see, I do not understand. What do we do it? How do we manage to do it? So my response from my experience and what Acharya says, what I told him is, these rules and regulations are good to follow and they should be followed. It is not that we shouldn't follow, but even more important, that it is basically the mood of following Ekadashi. That is more important. You follow Ekadashi, you fast, good, you would get some benefits. But to get benefits immediately and to optimum results, get optimum results, you have to follow it in a proper mood. So how should be our mood during Ekadashi? Mamta Mataji, can you please read this slide?
Yes, Prabhuji. Mood during Ekadashi. To observe Ekadashi Vrata and Dwadashi Vrata means to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those interested in advancing in Krishna consciousness must observe Ekadashi Vrata regularly. According to the Vaishnava calendar, there are many fasts, such as Ekadashi and the appearance and disappearance day of God and his devotees. All of these are meant to decrease the fat within the body so that one will not sleep more than desired and will not become inactive and lazy. Overindulgence in food will cause a man to sleep more than required. This human form of life is meant for austerity, and austerity means controlling sex, food intake, etc. In this way, time can be saved for spiritual activity, and one can purify himself both externally and internally. Thus, both body and mind can be cleansed. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.28.36.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So only one single strong message by Prabhupada. What was that? He was in the mood to please the Supreme Lord. So it is not about just fasting of food. What Prabhupada tells us, how should we do it? We should also refrain from other materialistic activities during the day. Food intake, sex, watching probably movies, we can probably avoid watching movies. So these are the different things that we can do. And what do we do during that time? We engage ourselves in more spiritual activities, chanting, listening to Krishna Katha, some lectures, reading some books of some Vedic books. So this is how we should, this is what we should do during Ekadashi, ideally, so that we get the results immediately. And what are the results I'm talking about? Not the Kundalini and other things. I'm talking about Krishna Prema or Bhakti, spiritually progress. So continuing with the mood, what Prabhupada further says is, and Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion. Vipula Mataji, can you please read this slide? Can you read the first 2 points, Mataji?
Yes.
Yeah, first 2 points. Thank you.
Mood during Ekadashi. The real reason for observing fasting on Ekadashi is to minimize the demands of the body and to engage our time in the service of Lord by chanting or by performing similar service. Nectar of Devotion. Ekadashi means minimizing the demands of the body and maximizing our service to Krishna. On Ekadashi, we should eat more simple and try to put into practice the maxim, eat to live, not live to eat.
Thank you, Mataji. Jai Ho. So it is very nicely. So Nectar of Devotion is by Rupa Goswami, translated by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So here also he stressed on the same point. It should be as a service to Krishna, for the pleasure of Krishna. and he has beautifully quoted, eat to live, not live to eat. So basically we should eat as much that would be sufficient for our to sustain our body, but we should not live to eat. We should not overeat, basically, which can I'm not even talking the spiritual, even on the health, on our health part, this would affect our body. Rakhi Mataji, can you please read the third point?
Sure, Prabhuji. In the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, it is said that one who observes fasting on Ekadashi day is free from all kinds of reactions to sinful activities and advances in pious life, nectar of devotion.
Thank you, Mataji. So even different shastras, this is not only Bhagavatam, and different shastras, they say that when you follow fast on Ekadashi, it will free you from all kind of sinful actions. So we have seen this is because of the mercy of the goddess Ekadashi. So because she emerged and she was given a boon, and it was because of the compassion, both the kathas which we listen today, pastimes, in both the pastime, it was only for the welfare of the living beings. So all our sinful reaction, it has the power to free us from all the sinful reaction when we do it correctly and in the correct mood. The correct mood is very important, has to be underlined. So when you do that, then our all the sins, all kind of sins can be eradicated. Richa, can you read the last point? Richa or Rohit, anyone? You are on mute, Richa, Rohit. Okay. So I will read the last point. On Ekadashi, we increase our chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. To a disciple who asked, should we chant 25 rounds on Ekadashi? Srila Prabhupada replied, why only 25 rounds? You should chant as many as possible. So basically Prabhupada is saying that we should try to exaggerate our spiritual activities during this day. So it is like a we have these boosters we see in movies in the car, racing cars, and they turn on the boosters and the speed of the car increases. So similarly, these are like boosters, they increase our spiritual progress. So this was all about Ekadashi. So thank you for listening patiently. Any questions? Anyone wants to add something? Any feedback? And you're most welcome. Jay.